And I do want to switch gears, and I do want to wrap with a topic that, frankly, I've talked about quite a bit here on the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast through the years, and that is the one and done rule in college basketball in the NBA. I think most people probably listening know, but about 6, 7 years ago, I wrote a book called One and Fun about the original John Calipari Kentucky team. If you haven't read it, by the way, go ahead and make sure to purchase that right now. But I wrote a book called One and Fun about the first John Calipari team at Kentucky. I love college basketball, talk about college basketball all the time. And over the last couple of years, it has seemed as though we are going to get the one and done rule removed. Well, on Monday, we basically got unofficial confirmation that that rule will, in fact, be removed maybe as early as the 2024 NBA draft, which is, of course, not the upcoming one, but the following one. The news came from a report, Shams Charania, I should say, a really well-respected NBA reporter. He came out with kind of a news and notes about kind of the current state of collective bargaining agreement in the NBA, and he dropped the nugget that both sides seem intent on eliminating the one and done rule, and that basically now, as we all know, players have to be 1 year removed from high school and 19 years old to enter the NBA draft. The age limit will now be dropped to 18 years old. And so I want to talk about it. I want to discuss it. But let me just say this. This is so dumb. This is so idiotic. And I'll be honest, this speaks to the ignorance. This speaks to the grossness of Adam Silver as a commissioner. I want to break it all down and let's get into it. And let me just start by saying this. Listen, whenever I talk about stuff like this, I always get NBA Twitter. Oh, you're a college basketball guy, and if the best players don't play college basketball, you won't have a career. Stop it. I'm not trying to brag. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I'm Stephen A. Smith here, but my career is going pretty well. I will be fine if a select number of high school players go pro out of high school, and so will college basketball, and we'll discuss all that going forward. But at its most basic level, this is dumb for two simple reasons. Removing the one and done rule is dumb for two very simple reasons I'm going to discuss right now. The first one, it's pretty straightforward. It goes against the entire reason that you put this rule in place in the first place. Remember, the reason the one and done rule was put into place was because NBA coaches, NBA GMs, NBA owners were tired of drafting high school players. Yes, there's a LeBron James. Yes, there's a Dwight Howard, a Kobe Bryant. There's also a lot of guys that you've never heard of. Ever heard of Robert Swift? Ever heard of Ndubi Ebe? Ever heard of Travis Outlaw? These are all guys that were picked in the first round in either 2003 or 2004 that never ended up making it out of high school. And so this rule was put into place because increasingly David Stern realized if we don't do something, we're just going to have 15, 20, 30, 35 high school players a year entering the NBA draft. And the bottom line is the coaches don't want to coach them. The GMs don't want their entire careers defined by, did you pick the right high school guy or did you pick the wrong high school guy? And if you pick the wrong one, you're not going to be around for very long. And owners don't want to pay 18-year-old kids insane amounts of money when they don't have any real world experience. So the reason it's done is because it runs completely counter to every reason that the rule was put into place. The rule, I would argue, now some might disagree, I would argue the rule has been a smashing success. Players now go to high school go from high school to college for a year. Players, of course, they get the college experience. They get the national exposure of playing on TV, and I don't think you can undersell that. Who was Zion? Zion Williamson was very famous before college. Duke took him to another level. Anthony Davis, John Wall, R.J. Barrett, Trae Young, Ben Simmons. You go on and on. Those guys were elevated by coming to college. And at the same time, it helped them. It helped them build their brand. It helped them make a lot of money when they came into the NBA. But at the same time, it helps the NBA as well. Because now they don't have to guess on which guy's going to make it, which guy's not, which guy's going to be able to handle being away from home for the first time, which guy's going to be able to handle money, all that good stuff. And so it makes no sense. The system was working perfectly fine. And the second reason why this is just idiotic is because what I just said. It's a rule that essentially nobody wants. Like, who is Adam Silver trying to impress with this rule? Twitter? Social media that says that players have it so bad? They don't have it bad. They can go to college, get NIL money. Oh, by the way, if you don't want to go to college, there's plenty of pathways, whether it's Australia, whether it's G League Ignite, whether it's Overtime Elite. There are plenty of opportunities to play somewhere professionally if you don't want to go to college. But it's working, And nobody wants this change. I can tell you, I've talked to NBA front office people. They don't want to have to go back into high school gyms and evaluate 16-year-olds, try to figure out, okay, which one's going to make it, which one's not, which one's going to hit a growth spurt, which one hasn't, which one already hit their growth spurt, who's really good, who's just good because the competition is so inferior. GMs don't want to draft those guys. I would guess, I'll be honest, haven't talked to too many billionaires lately, can't speak for NBA owners. I'm guessing they don't want to pay them. NBA players, they're going to be giving up jobs to 18-year-olds. I don't think anybody wants this, except for obviously 18-year-old players and the agents who represent them, who now the age just takes a kid at 18 years old. He doesn't have to be good. He doesn't have to prove himself. He doesn't have to go to college. You just hang out in high school gyms, sign the best guys, and you're going to be making millions. And so it makes no sense. I don't get it. But what I will say, because I'm a glasses half full guy, let's get back to the positives for a second. What I would say is, I do think that college basketball is in a better position to handle this transition than it was even 2, 3, 4 years ago. Okay. I do think having NIL in place will help. I still think those super elite, super talented players are going to go straight out of high school. But I think that next tier, the guys that might be a second rounder, might go undrafted, might be a first rounder, but it's not guaranteed. Do you try to go to college for 1 year where 3, 4, 5 years ago, there's no NIL money. And so basically you would have been deciding between making no money in college or going to the NBA and making some money. Instead, now you can say, hey, I'm projected as the 27th overall pick. Maybe I should go to Michigan State for a year. Maybe I should go to Duke for a year. Maybe I should go to Kentucky for a year, make some money while I'm on campus, and then go pro a year later. What I would also say from college basketball's perspective, I'll be honest, about 3, 4 years ago, it really struck me two things. One, I do think the sport is kind of going away from the one and done, right? It was all the rage for the early to mid 2000s. And I think everybody kind of realized after a while, it's really hard to build a championship caliber team with just freshmen. If you look at most of college basketball, outside of Duke, who's really relying on like heavy one and dones? John Calipari this year might only start one freshman in Case and Wallace. He only started one freshman last year in Ty Washington. Arkansas and Eric Musselman, they signed 3 McDonald's All-Americans, but they got a bunch of grown man veterans around them to help them make it easier. And so I think college basketball, I realized about 3, 4 years ago, it's almost going to be a different sport than the NBA. You watch college basketball for the teams and the programs and the this and the that, and the individual players are less important because the individual players either are coming and leaving very quickly or they're not coming at all. And so what I've realized is college basketball is going to be fine, right? What I've realized is, and I don't know why I keep saying what I've realized, but what I've realized is I do think that as time has gone on, something has struck me, which is I don't think a Kentucky fan really cares. And in some ways, I think they actually prefer whether they have the number one recruiting class number. Kentucky fans want to know that when the ball tips off in November, they have a team that's good enough to win a national championship. Same with Michigan State, same with Kansas, same with UCLA, same with Duke, same with North Carolina, same with Louisville, same with Memphis. And so if you have a bunch of players that are going to the NBA, if you don't, I don't think most fans really care. I think they just want to know that they have a team that's good enough to win it. And I do think increasingly programs have become less inclined to build around those types of players. I think even John Calipari, even Bill Self, even Chris Beard, whoever, have realized that you need some veterans in the locker room. I think the transfer portal is only going to become increasingly more important. And I think really outside of 1 to 2 programs, I don't know how much this impacts college basketball. I had somebody DM me, oh, this is the end of Calipari's career. Look at who Calipari's recruited the last 2, 3, 4 years. I think he'll lose some guys. I think he'll also just be more aggressive in the portal in April, just like Eric Musselman is, just like Nate Oates is, just like Bruce Pearl is, just like Chris Beard is, just like Andy Enfield is, whoever. I think Duke might weirdly be impacted. I think John Shire is probably the biggest loser of the day because that is the guy that is all in on the one and dones. But I don't really know how much it affects most of college basketball. And if you really look at even college basketball coming into this year, who are the teams that we're excited about? We're excited about North Carolina with Caleb Love and Armando Bacot. We're excited about Hunter Dickinson at Michigan. We're excited about Oscar Tshiebwe at Kentucky. I don't know that all that much changes, and I do still think it's going to be a veteran sport, a transfer sport, and it's really going to be less about NBA development and NBA draft boards and much more about, again, Kentucky versus Michigan State, Gonzaga versus Duke, whoever. Three quick thoughts before we get out of here on what's left. Couple things. One, I don't care what anybody says. Don't let anybody tell you any different. This is not good for the overall health of basketball. And listen, you guys and girls know I love college basketball. I'm around the sport all the time. I know coaches, I know parents, I know families. This isn't good, and it's ironic, right? Because Adam Silver, who I'm going to get to in a minute, he is the guy that has said repeatedly, my guys are less happy than they've ever been before. And I don't think he's wrong on that. I would also argue, I don't think putting more money in their hands at a younger age, putting more pressure on them is the way to make them happy, right? I mean, think about the guys in the NBA that appear to be kind of the most stable, the most kind of grounded. Isn't it the older guys that did 2, 3, 4 years in college? Isn't it Steph Curry? Isn't it Ja Morant? Isn't it guys like that? By the way, LeBron, I know there's always the exception to every rule. But Dwayne Wade, when he was in the NBA, just very stable, very just whatever. He had the maturity, he had the real life experience. Now flip it with the guys that cause nothing but headaches. It's the guys that came 1 year in college, less experience. Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons. I don't think that giving a bunch of 18-year-olds a bunch of money without any life experience is the answer here. Speaking of Adam Silver, I'm just going to say it. The guy he just makes my skin crawl, okay? Everything he does, everything he says is some sort of trying to please a social media mob. I mean, first of all, I've said this on the record repeatedly. I think he's the worst commissioner of my lifetime, at least in the three major sports. I can't speak to hockey and Gary Bettman. I don't know how the MLS commissioner is. I don't know if message boards are aflame about talking about him. But Adam Silver, think about everything Adam Silver's done since he came to the NBA. As I just said, his players are more unhappy than ever before. Players are demanding trades more than ever before. They don't even respect the contracts that they don't respect the paper their contracts are written on. Ratings are down. I think this is all a direction of leadership. It's okay to do stuff that's unpopular. It's okay to do things for the good of the sport. And I'm sorry, but having younger and younger people coming into the sport is not good for it. On top of that, I would also say, what did I just say a minute ago? Everything he does is for PR. He can't keep, think about how he handled the Robert Sarver stuff. I mean, it was just weird and bizarre and gross. Finally, what I would say is, and this speaks to the Adam Silver stuff, I don't understand why the NBA has such an adversarial situation with college basketball, right? I've heard my buddy Colin Cowherd go on this rant, but I think he's 1,000% right. The NFL has realized they have an incredible minor league and an incredible marketing tool in something we call college football. And it seems as though the NFL is aware of college football, cognizant of college football, and tries to complement college football because it knows the benefits of college football. One, it's given you a mature adult grown up when they come to the locker room. I mean, Joe Burrow got drafted at 23, 24 years old. Trevor Lawrence got drafted at 21. Tua, you go on and on down the list. But two, it's the marketing tool. We know who Trevor Lawrence is. We know who Tua is. We know who Kyler Murray is. We know who Lamar Jackson is when he won a Heisman and then had to come back for another year. I think everything worked out well for Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, all those guys. Yet the NBA, for some reason, has this weird adversarial thing with college basketball. I'll say this, I could even understand 3-4 years ago when kids weren't getting paid. I could understand it's an easy stance for the NBA to say, if those guys aren't going to pay them, then come up to our league, we'll take care of you, whatever. But now that they're getting paid, let these kids go to college for a year. Let them be kids for a year. They're going to enter the NBA at 19 years old and make millions of dollars. Let them grow at their own pace. Let them mature at their own pace. There's no need. And oh, by the way, it's a great marketing tool. How many people outside of Zion, how many people knew any of these kids coming out of high school? I've talked to multiple people that love NBA. I love the NBA, media members, fans, whatever. They couldn't have picked out Paolo Banchero a year ago before he played at Duke. They couldn't have picked out Jabari Smith for sure at Auburn. Now, maybe Chet Holmgren, he's so unique, 7'1", skinny, whatever. But how many of these guys, how much did college basketball benefit Paolo Banchero, benefit RJ Barrett, benefit all of these guys that I've mentioned? So I'm going to get off my soapbox. It's whatever. I don't think it's as big of a deal for college basketball as it would have been 3, 4, 5 years ago. But I'd be lying if I said I'm not a little sad. I'd be I'd be lying if I said I'm not sad that we're going to see the next generation of Zion Williamson, Kevin Durant, Derrick Rose, John Wall, Anthony Davis. And oh, by the way, the crazy part is all those guys love their schools. Carmelo Anthony, Syracuse, the practice facility is named after him. Russell Westbrook, who I know wouldn't have been a one and done, the practice facility is named after him at UCLA. Kevin Durant was just back on campus at Texas the other day. You could see how much Texas means to him. So Adam Silver, don't like the guy. Think he's kind of a snake. Think he's been the worst thing for the NBA. Think the NBA has never been less popular in my lifetime than it is now, and the ratings reflect that. I think he's a terrible commissioner. I think this is a terrible decision. The good news is college basketball is going to go on as it has.